There is too much silence in America. This is just true. There is too much commitment to silence. We are too busy. I'm joking around about it in the opening of the show, but the fact is there's just too much shutting people up. And of course, I'm referring to Roseanne. Each situation has to be taken individually, and we have to discuss each situation individually, and I will discuss this individually. But in general, the outrage has got to stop. I mean, we are just going to spend all our time shutting each other up instead of arguing. I'd much rather we were arguing with each other at the top of our lungs than shutting people up. You know, I do make exceptions. I do say, oh, you know, the NFL, these football players were on field in uniform speaking as if for the NFL and hurting the NFL's business. I understand why they silenced them, but in terms of people's opinions and their, you know, loudmouth remarks and their offhanded tweets and all this stuff, let's put it this way: the standard should be freedom. The standard should be tolerance. The standard should be argumentation as opposed to shutting people up. The standard should be, I disagree with you, here's why. That should be the standard. Or, you know, I don't like you, I'm not listening to you anymore, or I'm not coming to your store, whatever you want. But the standard should not be shut up. That is really becoming the sort of norm. So let's take the Roseanne situation. You know, I heard about Roseanne being fired the minute I went off the air yesterday. Jacob Airy, one of our, who knows what these people do? God knows what they do for a living, but he works here. And he came running in and told me about this. And he told me about her tweet about Valerie Jarrett, right? This is Obama's, they used to call her the first sister. She was basically his closest advisor and was universally hated. The left hated her, the right hated her. She was blamed every time something went wrong in the Obama administration, which was an every day that ended with a Y. She was often blamed for not letting the information get to him. A real Chicago operator, not somebody that people like. Also, she was born in Iran, I think it is, and is black. All right. So Roseanne tweets, the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby equals VJ Valerie Jarrett. Okay. So the first thing I thought when I heard this, truly the first thing that came into my mind, long time ago, back in the 1980s, I was still a liberal. All right. I'm still a liberal. George Steinbrenner owned the Yankees, and George Steinbrenner was Donald Trump. He was a roughneck, he was a loudmouth, and he was a Republican, and so the New Yorkers hated him. They were always picking on him, but he was great at running the Yankees. He really did a good job running the Yankees. I'm sure you've seen him if you ever watched Seinfeld. He's a character in Seinfeld. George Steinbrenner is looking out the window one day at a playground, and he sees kids climbing on what then was called the jungle gym. I think now they call it a climbing frame. And he said, oh, that's cute. They look like little monkeys on the, you know, in the trees, you know. And they jumped on this because the kids were black. And they said, oh, he must have been. And I'm a liberal, right? And I thought to myself, wait a minute. The racism there is in the mind of the listener, because any parent who has been in a playground watching his kid on a jungle gym, no matter what color he was, has said the same thing. We all say the same thing. They look like monkeys in the trees. That's what they look like. They're hanging around. They're jumping around. They're yelling at each other. And I thought Steinbrenner got nailed. And I thought it was wrong at that moment. However, I got to tell you, I know a lot of people who know Roseanne, a lot of people who know her. Next to Harvey Weinstein, the things that they say about Roseanne, I mean, what an awful human being she is, all right? So I am going to take it as read that she meant it this way. And I think she did. I really do. I think she makes a lot of racist jokes. And I kind of, you know, it's funny. I kind of like racial humor. I thought racial humor was always funny and a way of expending, you know, natural tribal hostility. But I could tell, you can always tell when it crosses a line. You could always tell. I always remember, even as a kid, people would tell me jokes and I would laugh and think that's pretty fun. And then every now and again, you know, I think that's kind of mean, you know, that's kind of mean. So let's just say it was what ABC said it was, that it was abhorrent, okay? Now, does she have to be fired for that? I would have preferred that she wasn't. But I got to say, ABC has the right. They have the right. I would have preferred. I think there's too much silence in America. I would have preferred they slapped her wrist. Other people, that sportscaster who said that, what did she say about Donald Trump? I can't remember. The sportscaster on ESPN, which is a Disney thing. She said I think he was a white supremacist or something like that. They gave her a slap on the wrist. They didn't fire her. They ultimately suspended her for something else that she said. But I thought they could have done that to Roseanne. And so my problem is much bigger than this, okay? My problem is bigger than this. My problem is not Roseanne, right? My problem is last man standing. My problem, what happened to Last Man Standing? It's going to come back on Fox, right? Which is great. But ABC are the ones who canceled that too, while it was a hit. And they said, well, there was this, there was that, economic, you know, it was a right wing, it was a conservative show. And this Roseanne show had her as a Trump supporter. And because of that, it went through the roof. It was a big, big ratings monster. And even though its ratings fell off, it remained a pretty powerful, powerful show. So what I'm saying is, yes, did they have the right to fire her? Was it legal? Sure, of course it was. Did she say something repulsive? Yeah, I think she did say something repulsive. All of that. But that's not what this is about. This is about ABC and the silence. It is about canceling Last Man Standing. I want to see, you want to prove to me it's not about that? Have Disney, who owns ABC, have them release The Path to 9/11, okay? The Path to 9/11, the story of how we got to 9/11, which the Clintons did everything they could to bury. It was a ratings smash. And one of the things it showed, which is absolutely true, was that Bill Clinton didn't have Osama bin Laden killed when he could have. And that's why Osama bin Laden lived to attack our World Trade Center on 9/11. And Clinton hated this. And the Clinton buddies hated this. And the people who, you know, Iger over at Disney, even though this thing was a ratings monster, Path to 9/11, I think at the time it was the biggest, one of the biggest rated miniseries ever. They've never released it on DVD. Never. You cannot get it. You can't get your hands on it. So if this is not about silencing a voice for Trump, right, release it. Release The Path to 9/11. If it's not, what happened? You know what? I would settle for this. Say, hey, Roseanne was a horrible person. She said horrible things. We can't work with her. We'll put on another show. We'll put on other shows. Instead of all our comedians, late night comedians being against Trump, instead of all our shows being against Trump, instead of every time you watch, turn on the show, so it's like a hand coming out of the television set and slapping you in the face. We will entertain these people. We're using the public airways. This is FCC controlled air. We will serve the tens of millions of people and entertain the tens of millions of people who voted for the president of the United States. And guess what? There's going to be 10 million more next time. So you really want to get that audience. And so just prove to us that this is all it's about. That's what I want to say to ABC. Too much silence over there at ABC when it comes to entertaining the people who voted for and support Donald Trump. Okay, here's the rest of the problem, is that they are not, it's not just Roseanne. They will use Roseanne to sell this narrative. And I'm going to talk about why later on in the show, why this narrative is so important to them, to tar us all as racists, right? Why that's the thing they always go for. But they immediately go on and they blame Trump. It's not Roseanne's fault. She supported Trump. Trump supported her. So it must be all Donald Trump's fault. Do we have that montage? Here's a montage of the news people relating the story, trying to stick it on Trump.
You can't say they understand us or they get us and then now want to be completely divorced from it. You can't say...
That will speak volumes. He very likely could.
And you can't say there are fine people on both sides. You cannot say racist things, encourage people to get punched at your rally. People who are racist don't know they're racist. Or they say that they believe that people are going to believe that they're not racist simply because they say it is. I think we need a crash course in exactly what racism is.
And so what we see is this vile conduct by Roseanne Barr. It's not a joke. It is a stone cold racist statement by one of the most prominent public supporters of a racist president who time and time again has shown us his true colors, and not for the first time at Charlottesville when he lectures the country and he says that, well, there's good Nazis out there.
He's attaching himself to Roseanne. Then this is about him, too. This sort of toxic language and opinions are what he's been spewing across the country, and they are taking hold.
It started with Roseanne Barr today. Might very well end with Donald Trump tonight.
So it's about Trump, but it's not just about Trump. It's about anyone who voted for Trump. Here is cut number 11.
Tens of millions of people voted for him after he showed his cards for years.
But are you suggesting that they're racist, or
yes.
The people who vote, all the people who voted for Donald Trump are racist?
Yes, they may not be violently racist. They may not be. He's targeted. He's very clear and strategic. Look, anti-Blackness is a strategy that has been the foundation of part of the American project.
So you heard that logic there, right? Roseanne said something racist because Trump is racist, because you're racist for voting for Trump, because America is racist. That is the left narrative in a nutshell. And that's why the MSNBC had a panel on racism. Who's there? Al Sharpton Jr. is there. One of the biggest anti-Semites in the world, Al Sharpton Jr., a guy who's got blood on his hands for his racism. Joy Reid is there, who found these tweets saying, I can't believe I wrote these tweets. Were they tweets? I can't remember. They were posts about gay people, right? They're attacking gay people. That I can't believe. I'm shocked to find that I'm this person. It's the silence that does it, because they don't know who we are. You want to know where this is happening in the next generation is England, right? Love England, lived there for 7 years. I don't know if you've heard the story about Tommy Robinson. Now, I have to set this up, right? Tommy Robinson is an anti-Muslim activist. He is a kind of a roughneck guy from the provinces. He's not a London guy. He doesn't have the posh accent. He's a roughneck guy who doesn't always speak, in the clearest possible way. And I'm setting this up for a reason. I'm telling you this for a reason. Now, what he was doing is he was live streaming a trial for these Muslim rape gangs. That's what they are. They're Muslim rape gangs. About 80% of the people who do them are Muslims. They take little girls as young as 11, and they call them grooming gangs, which is just, I'm saying raping children gangs. Why not just call them Muslim raping children gangs? Because that's what they are, all right? And he's outside the court where they're trying some of these guys wishfully before hanging them, but that's not what's going to happen. And they arrest him for violating some terms of his parole because he'd been arrested before for something else, because he's an activist. And they towed him away. He gets a 4-minute hearing, and they throw him in jail where he could be killed by Muslims. And when they said that to the judge, she said, "So what?" That's what she said. So what? Now, they then say, "Oh, and by the way, you can't report on this." In England, they don't know this is going on. Right? The newspapers just scrubbed the reports of it right away. Now, I have to tell you, that is the British way. They can do that with a trial. They put the rights of the people on trial before the rights of the press. That is normal there. It's wrong, but it's normal. So they do it a lot. They say, you can't cover this trial. A trial will be going on, and you'll hear about it from a friend who saw something about it, but the press won't report on it until it's over. All right? So that part of it is part of this. But the idea that he is the criminal, and these, after they themselves hid, the law enforcement and government protected these Muslim rape gangs because they were afraid of seeming anti-Muslim. I don't think this is the end of Western civilization. I think it's the end of European civilization. I've said this before. I think Europe is dead, and I basically think these people are just eating the corpse. That's all what I think is going on. But what I want to show you, the reason I was talking about the fact that Tommy Robinson is kind of a roughneck, is he did an interview with, Jeremy Paxton, that's his name. Now, Jeremy Paxton is one of the voices of authority over there. He's a newsman. He does the big interview shows. When I was there, I think he had a news show as well. And so he is like an authoritative voice. Do we have that? Yeah, okay. And he's interviewing Tommy Robinson. So here's this authoritative, posh, elite voice interviewing this guy from the provinces. And Robinson says to him, basically, you don't know what's going on. You're too elite. You are not seeing what is happening to our country. So you can make these stupid liberal arguments about these people. And you hear Paxton droning on, bringing out the old, well, not all Muslims, not all. Listen to what Tommy Robinson is telling him. And because this is the voice they want to silence, which is also the voice of Roseanne Barr, not the bigotry, the love of Trump. That's the voice they want to silence. It's the voice that is not the elite voice. Listen to this.
We're against Islam taken in its 7th century barbaric form.
Well, your direct quote is, "I'm not against Muslims, just Islam." Against
militant Islam. And when I say Islam, taken in its 7th century barbaric form. If Islam was to evolve, which it needs to evolve, to fit in with Western democracy, which is clearly not. Clearly there's a problem. Clearly, the English Defence League is a phenomenon that swept this country. And with the issues I'm talking about, Jeremy, if I ask you, Do you know anyone that's hooked on heroin sold to them by Muslim gangs? You probably don't. I do. Do you know any beautiful girls that you went to school with that are now wearing a burqa that don't see their family? Probably don't. I do. Do you know anyone who's been murdered by a Muslim gang? You probably don't. I do. Do you know any 15-year-old girls that you know that you've grown up with that have been raped or pimped? You don't. So I don't expect you to understand the issues.
These are all personal issues of yours.
Personal issues in towns and cities like mine that are happening, and they're not happening with the Sikh community. They're not happening with the Jewish community.
And indeed, they're not happening with most Muslims.
No, they're happening within the Islamic community. This is what I'm saying, that it's an Islamic problem. And when I'm just a simple person, so I'm just a normal person, but when I'm looking at, I have to look for where this hatred's coming from.
That's an amazing interview. I mean, he takes the guy apart, really, because he says you're not seeing it, and because you're not seeing it, you can protect yourself from feeling that you're a bad, anti-Muslim, bigoted person. You know, the thing is, the people, when they voted for Donald Trump, they were telling you something. They were talking. Why don't you listen to them? Because you want the silence. The silence helps your political point of view. It helps the elites. It helps the people who have risen to the top and now want to keep other people from rising to the top. It's not about Roseanne. It's not about Roseanne. She said something ugly. They want to cancel her. Put on another show with a Trump supporter. Put on 2 other shows, because there's a lot of Trump supporters out there. Bring back Last Man Standing, release The Path to 9/11. Then I'll believe that it's not just about silencing that voice, as they are now doing in England, using the full force of law.